Hello. So, here we go again. So, once more, the little video intro. Let's see. This YouTube series is just a recollection of my past D&D campaigns, so my players have something to remember their adventures. I hope they enjoy it. Again, I take no credit for this campaign setting. I used the Sourcebook Explorer's Guide to Wildmount for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, created by the company and show Critical Role. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, of course, is created by Wizards of the Coast or owned by Hasbro, whatever. I curated the story using the Sourcebook and my players' backstories for this particular campaign. So the first campaign I'm doing is my most recent and longest campaign. I will do the older campaigns after this, going all the way back to the first campaign. So essentially I'm just relying off of my Dungeon Master notes to tell this this sort of recollection, this journey. But essentially what I'm getting at here is we're continuing the same journey, right? With our band of adventurers. And obviously everything kind of gets convoluted whenever you get to a town. I didn't really keep track of what they were doing each day. I just know what they did in the town. So it might be a little bit out of order for my players that remembers like, hey, we went there on this day. It's like, well, my notes are not that precise, so sorry. That being said, I'm going to start doing this a little bit differently. I'm always a little bit stretched for time, so now I'm going to start doing it like this, where I just kind of go over my little notes here, and in this fancy book that my sister made for me. Wrong name, but it was still really cool. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started with this one. So at this point, the party is essentially by this point they're all pretty much level 3. So they're starting to delve into their subclasses with their primary class, right? So we have Vorkeef, who I believe is a Twilight cleric, and those clerics are, they're really good at seeing things in the dark. And then we have Xander, who I think went the Psychic Blade, if I recall correctly. So he uses a lot of psychic daggers. And then we have Psychic as a damage type for D&D. But anyways, and then I think Vexen went with something a little bit more normal, pretty straight and narrow. And then we have Wick, who I believe was Pact of the Tome. Not Pact of the Genie, it's just, it's whatever. But, and then we have, finally, the standout, which was Nox's kid, who went with the Swarm Keeper subclass. And so Nox's kid, in his cowboy hat, he has this small hive of bees. And they're really funny. And yeah, so Nox's kid and his bees in his hat. And I recall they all had really peculiar names. I think they were really funny. They were really adorable sort of names. But he had a name for each of them. And it's like 11 or 12. Anyways, and then he picked one bee who was the leader. So, with that being said, he's a Swarm Keeper Ranger. So, he's always got like a hive, like a miniature hive of like honey and goop from the bees. And that's where they stay. They stay inside his hat. Anyways, so from there, essentially the party is, with the information that they have, they're now basically kind of going to the marquee of the town, trying to get her to sort of just let them know, it's like, hey, if you want us to do some stuff here, we gotta basically we got to go ahead and we got to break a few eggs. So they go to the Marquis and basically tell her of their plan. You know, they're saying it's like, listen. And the Marquis, Tussoa Latu, she's, they all have like French accents or Spanish accents on the Lucidian coast. It's just something Matt Mercer did, so what it's called. I tried to do the same. I'm not very good. I'm not very good at, I think I did like a French accent when I was like, oui, you want to do some work for me, the Marquis? And they were like, what? And I was like, whatever. Anyways, I tried my best. French accent. I don't know. Anyways, so at that point, she sort of tells them to, says they have her full approval to do whatever it is they got to do. So at this point, they decide, all right, let's just go straight to the docks. Let's go and see what's going on here. And so the party goes to this dock tavern. Yeah, I think it had some sort of grungy name, like Rotten Wood or something like that, or Rotten Oak. Or anyways, they show up and they discover that this tavern is run by a faction known as the Revelry. Now, the Revelry is just kind of like a fancy name for a pirate organization that operates all across the Lucidian Ocean and upwards into the coast. Anyways, it is a tavern that is run by their faction. And so essentially what happens is, as they enter, they're looking a little rough. I mean, they're trying to blend in. They're not exactly, aside from Wick, who's nicely dressed, the rest of them look like they belong. I don't know. Nox's kid, he's just wearing a cowboy hat, so, he blends in. Anyways, they enter, and as they're skulking about and trying to eavesdrop and gather some information, Xander notices one of the individuals that he is hunting, or that he knows is in this city of Tussoa. And that individual is a tiefling by the name of Grief, who is playing at a card table. And so essentially, Xander kind of breaks rank, goes straight for him, and a fight ensues pretty quickly. Now, it's kind of like a bare knuckle fight, right? Everyone's just brawling each other because they don't want to really start killing anyone or anything like that, because then everyone's going to draw their swords. So it kind of turns into a bare knuckle brawl. But from there's a little bit of magic here and there to kind of even the odds. But with that, they end up having, after this fight, they learn that both of the individuals that Xander is hunting are in Tussoa on assignment by the Myriad, which is another criminal organization that is in the world of Exandria. So, or particularly on the continent of Wildmount. So the Myriad is kind of keeping tabs on their competitors, the Revelry. And essentially, from there, Xander learns that the other individual that he's hunting, the other tiefling by the name of Murder, I didn't think too hard. I looked down the name of virtues, and I was like, Grief, Murder, that'll do. And so, anyways, I went with that, and so Murder is somewhere on the docks. And so from there, Xander just immediately says, all right, we found one of them. I want to find the other one. And so he's taken off. And with that, what is it called? The reason why he's so adamant about catching these two guys, he's already caught one, Grief, who wants Murder, is because these two were supposedly involved with the murder of his mother. So from there, Xander goes straight to the docks to try and track down Murder, in which case Vorkeef and Wick follow in tow. They want to back him up, make sure he doesn't run into something he can't handle. because they're all still low level. Anyways, Vexen, Noxus Kid, and Dolemon continue to gather intel from Grief, and they discover that the Majest Timber Guild is hiding something nearby in the nearby swamp. So, as they can't really garner. Grief doesn't necessarily know what it is that's in the swamp, but he knows the Majest Timber Guild is hiding something. And they got a lot of guards, sellswords, and mercenaries located around it to try and hide it and protect it. So anyways, before parting, Vexen, in a very clever way, he sort of explains, or he just sort of says aloud, it's like, by the way, this guy is working with your competitor, the Myriad. And so, all the Revelry guys, they all just have a quick glance over at Grief. And from there, Vexen, Noxus Kid, and Dolemon leave, and what happens to Grief happens to Grief. But anyways, from there, they, Vorkeef and Wick, they finally catch up to Xander, who's currently just sort of staking out the docks. He didn't rush right in. He wants to make sure he knows the situation beforehand. So he's doing perception checks and stuff like that, trying to track down Murder. And that's whenever he spots him, at least from the description that he got from Grief. And so from there, pretty much immediately, they spring into action. Vorkeef and Wick are like, we got your back. Yeah, he's alone. He's talking to one guy. And so from there, it's a really short combat encounter because they just sort of sneak up as close as they can until they have no choice but to just bum rush him down the docks. And while Xander's getting as close as he can to him, Wick and Vorkeef are using ranged cantrips to basically try and keep Murder busy. The other guy doesn't even want to fight. He kind of dives off into the dock and just disappears. But anyways, Xander gets right up on him, and he's got him. And so after that short little combat encounter, they find out that Murder had actually just essentially came from the Majest camp, the Majest Timber Guild, the camp in the woods, where he was just delivering like supplies and stuff like that. He himself doesn't know either what is in there, what is the secret within the swamp. But essentially, Xander, after a brief sort of confrontation where he asks him about his mother, Murder being a true villain, like like a true cutthroat villain, tries to get under Xander's skin and, tells him, is like, we weren't even the two that actually killed her. And it's like, there's one other guy that you're missing, and you're never going to find him. And so anyways, Xander exacts his bloody revenge on Murder, who deserved it. He's kind of a jerk. But anyways, from there, the party takes all this info to the Marquis, and they're sort of explaining, it's like, it looks like the Majest Guild is involved with something illicit going on in the swamp. But at that point, what is it called? And it seems like the Majest, out of the two timber guilds, is the one that is up to no good. The Regver one seemingly is on the up and up, for the most part, at least from what they can tell. And at that point, Elton, the Triton guard captain, or the captain of the Zelestos, he comes in and explains, hey, we got some bad news. The leader of the Regver Guild has been murdered. So at that point, they're like, all right, well, now we got a crime scene to investigate. Vorkeef, though, has a lot of experience with this sort of stuff, being like an urban bounty hunter. So him and Wick and Vexen, all of them, they go and they start investigating. Well, the other guys follow too, but what is called, the ones that are particularly good at investigating start investigating. and they're trying to figure it out. So essentially what ends up happening is they discover at the scene of the crime at the Regvert Guildhall, up in sort of like the office where the leader resides. There appears to be a sort of like occult ritualistic execution of this individual, and some stuff was taken from the body, and so they're like, ooh, that was pretty gross. Well, now we need to figure out where he was taken. And at this point, that's whenever Vexen and Nox's kid really come in handy, because they're like, all right, well, we got ourselves a little blood trail here. We got to track it down. So from there, they essentially go basically back towards like what appears to be an overlook. They follow like the signs of activity, and what appears to be, it stops at the docks, but it doesn't necessarily stop where the docks kind of like are officially a part of it. It seems like whoever it was like jumps off into the water and disappears. So they're like, okay, well, maybe what we should do is we should go and investigate the secret near the camp. Maybe this is all tied together. So essentially they arrive just outside of the camp, and they're just sort of keeping an eye on the area around it. And these guys, it looks to be a bunch of cutthroats, essentially, that are moving basically, they look to be not only like illicit sort of contraband, but also logs too. You know, they're busy trying to keep up appearances, but they're moving it with like illicit materials and stuff like that. So the party's like, okay, there's a lot of them, but maybe this will be enough, right, to go back with. But then they hear over eavesdropping that there's like a sinking house or a sunken house in the swamp, or a house that is sinking. Essentially, it's just like slowly sinking down into the bog, but it's been there for a while, so it's like flooded and stuff like that. On the first floor, they overhear some of the guys mentioning it and what direction it is. And so that's where the party decides, okay, let's go and track down this sinking abandoned house, because maybe there's something bigger over there. And that's where the party essentially sort of skulks through the swamp and discovers this home, this old abandoned like mansion. Okay, so back to it. So essentially the party is basically they've decided that they're going to go ahead and investigate this sinking house that is hidden within the bog. Now, I say a house, it's pretty large. It's a very large house that was long forgotten within the bog, and it looks to have been quite a fine sort of home at some point. Anyways, it is now completely in decay and just disrepair, and slowly will be consumed by the swamp. So as the party is approaching, they begin to hear and see some sort of dark chanting in a alien tongue that they do not understand, coming from the house. And as they look up, they can see through the boarded up windows eldritch light emitting from the second story. And so from there, they're like, all right, well, obviously they're getting ready to do something. So the party's like, well, we have no other choice now. We got to go in there and figure it out. So the party hops to it and begins to sort of check the surroundings of the first floor, and they begin to enter the home. And they're kind of sticking all together because they don't know what could happen. So they're trying to stay as a tight little unit. So with that, the party successfully enters the home, and from there, they will go ahead and sort of figure out what's going on. But that's pretty much it for this video, and we will pick back up on the next one. All right, bye-bye.